Have you ever walked away from an argument and thought of the perfect response hours later? Have you ever let someone's insult ruin your entire day, only to wonder why their words had so much power over you? Or maybe you've met people who never seem shaken, no matter how rude, arrogant, or disrespectful others become. They don't raise their voices. They don't try to prove themselves. They don't chase the last word. And somehow, they always leave with their dignity intact, while everyone else loses theirs. What do they know that most people don't? The answer isn't that they're naturally fearless. It's that they've mastered something the ancient Stoics understood more than 2,000 years ago. Real power isn't found in speaking louder. It isn't found in humiliating other people. And it certainly isn't found in winning every argument. Real power comes from controlling yourself when everyone else is losing control. The ancient Stoic philosophers believed that no one could truly insult you without your permission. That idea sounds almost impossible in today's world. After all, how can someone call you names, disrespect you, embarrass you in public, or attack your character without affecting you? The answer lies in understanding one simple truth. People's words only have the power you choose to give them. Imagine two people hearing the exact same insult. One becomes furious. They argue. They shout. They spend the rest of the day replaying the conversation in their mind. The other simply smiles, says a few calm words, and walks away. The insult was identical. The difference was not the words. The difference was the response. This is why Stoicism isn't about becoming emotionless. It's about becoming emotionally intelligent. It's about refusing to let another person's lack of self-control become your problem. Because the moment someone else can control your emotions, they also begin controlling your decisions. And that's a dangerous place to live. Think about how many arguments begin over something small. A sarcastic comment, a rude remark, someone cutting you off, someone questioning your intelligence, someone trying to provoke you in front of other people. Most conflicts don't grow because of what was said. They grow because both people refuse to stop feeding the fire. One ego challenges another. One angry voice meets another. Before long, everyone loses. The Stoics saw this pattern centuries ago. They understood that the strongest person in the room is rarely the loudest. The strongest person is usually the one who remains calm while everyone else is reacting emotionally. That kind of strength can't be faked. It comes from discipline. It comes from wisdom. And most importantly, it comes from practice. Today's world often celebrates quick comebacks and clever insults. Social media rewards people who can embarrass someone with a single sentence. Movies teach us that the hero always wins by delivering the perfect final line. But real life isn't a movie. In real life, every unnecessary argument steals something valuable from you. It steals your peace. It steals your energy. It steals your focus. And sometimes, it even steals your reputation. The Stoics believed that your peace of mind was one of your greatest possessions. Why hand it over to someone who hasn't earned it? Marcus Aurelius, one of history's greatest Stoic thinkers, reminded himself every morning that he would encounter rude, selfish, dishonest, and difficult people. Notice something remarkable about that mindset. He didn't expect everyone to treat him fairly. He expected challenges. And because he expected them, he wasn't shocked when they arrived. Imagine beginning each day already understanding that some people will misunderstand you. Some will criticize you unfairly. Some will try to provoke you. Some will project their own frustrations onto you. Instead of feeling surprised, you simply recognize it as part of being human. That single shift in perspective changes everything. You stop taking every insult personally. You stop trying to convince everyone that you're right. You stop needing universal approval because you realize something incredibly freeing. Not everyone deserves access to your emotional energy. That's a lesson many people spend decades learning. Some never learn it at all. They continue arguing with strangers online. They continue defending themselves against every criticism. They continue trying to change the opinions of people who have already decided not to understand them. Meanwhile, truly wise people quietly move forward with their lives. One of the greatest misunderstandings about silence is that people mistake it for weakness. But silence often requires far more strength than shouting. Anyone can react. Anyone can lose their temper. Anyone can say something they'll regret. Very few people can pause. Very few people can remain composed while emotions are running high. Very few people can choose dignity over ego. That's why silence has intimidated people throughout history. When someone expects you to argue back, but you remain calm instead, they suddenly lose the emotional control they thought they had over you. Your calmness becomes your loudest response. This doesn't mean allowing people to disrespect you endlessly. Stoicism isn't about becoming passive. It's about responding wisely instead of reacting emotionally. Sometimes wisdom speaks. Sometimes wisdom walks away. Sometimes wisdom says only a single sentence. The secret is knowing which response fits the situation. Today, we're going to explore 7 powerful Stoic responses that can silence almost anyone. Not because they're cruel, sarcastic, or humiliating, but because they're rooted in confidence, emotional mastery, and inner peace. These aren't manipulative tricks. They're principles that have helped wise men and women remain calm through criticism, insults, conflict, and disrespect for thousands of years. As we go through each response, you'll begin noticing something surprising. None of them require you to overpower another person. None of them depend on winning the argument. Instead, each response helps you win something far more valuable. Control over yourself. Because once you master yourself, very little in this world can truly disturb you. By the end of this video, you'll not only have 7 powerful responses that instantly change the direction of difficult conversations, but you'll also understand why these responses work so effectively from a Stoic perspective. Some of them may seem almost too simple, but don't underestimate simplicity. The calmest words often carry the greatest weight. The quietest person in the room is sometimes the strongest, and the greatest victory is often the argument you never needed to have in the first place. So, if you've ever wanted to stop letting rude people steal your peace, if you've ever wished you could respond with confidence instead of anger, and if you're ready to develop the quiet strength that made the Stoics legendary, stay with me until the end. Because response number 7 is perhaps the most powerful lesson of them all. It isn't just a sentence you can say. It's a way of living that makes you nearly impossible to manipulate, provoke, or defeat. The first response is to know that you're entitled to your opinion. The first response is remarkably simple. You're entitled to your opinion. At first glance, it may not seem particularly powerful. There's no clever comeback, no biting sarcasm, no attempt to embarrass the other person. And that's exactly why it works. Most people who criticize, insult, or provoke you aren't looking for a thoughtful discussion. They're looking for an emotional reaction. They expect you to defend yourself. They expect you to become angry. They expect you to prove them wrong. The moment you refuse to play that game, you've already changed the conversation. Imagine someone saying, "You'll never succeed." Instead of launching into a long explanation about your goals, your abilities, or your plans, you simply reply, "You're entitled to your opinion." Then you move on. Notice what happens. You've acknowledged their right to think what they want without accepting their judgment as truth. There's no argument left to win. No emotional fuel left to burn. The conversation often ends because the conflict has nowhere to go. The Stoics understood a profound truth. People see the world through the lens of their own experiences. Someone who constantly expects failure often assumes others will fail too. Someone filled with insecurity may criticize confident people because confidence reminds them of what they lack. Someone who lives with anger often interprets neutral situations as personal attacks. Their opinions reveal more about their inner world than yours. This doesn't mean every criticism should be ignored. Constructive criticism can help us grow. Stoics welcomed honest feedback because they valued wisdom over pride. The difference lies in the intention. Constructive criticism seeks improvement. Personal attacks seek emotional control. Learning to recognize the difference protects both your confidence and your peace. Imagine carrying a white shirt through a muddy street. Every person you pass has the opportunity to throw dirt onto it. If you stop and wrestle with every person who does, you'll end up covered in even more mud. Sometimes the wisest choice is simply to keep walking. Your destination matters more than their behavior. Marcus Aurelius frequently reminded himself that he could choose whether to be disturbed. The event itself wasn't always within his control. His response always was. That lesson remains just as relevant today. Not every opinion deserves a debate. Not every accusation deserves an explanation, and not every misunderstanding deserves your time. Confident people understand something insecure people often forget. You don't have to attend every argument you're invited to. When you calmly say, "You're entitled to your opinion," you're communicating something much deeper. You're saying, "My peace isn't dependent on your approval." That quiet confidence often speaks louder than any speech you could ever give. The second response is when you declare that I don't need to convince you. This sentence is incredibly freeing because it breaks one of the most exhausting habits people develop, the need to be understood by everyone. Think about how much energy people spend trying to justify themselves. They explain every decision. They defend every choice. They argue with strangers. They seek validation from people who have already decided to disagree. It's exhausting. The Stoics believe that your character should speak louder than your explanations. Words can persuade. Actions reveal the truth. Imagine someone questioning your integrity. Your first instinct might be to explain yourself in detail, to prove your innocence, to convince everyone watching that they're wrong. But consider another possibility. You simply smile and say, "I don't need to convince you." Then you continue living according to your values. Over time, your actions become the evidence. People often expose themselves through consistency. So do you. Trying to control another person's opinion is like trying to control the weather. No matter how much effort you invest, the outcome remains outside your control. And according to Stoicism, anything outside your control should never become the foundation of your happiness. This idea appears again and again in Stoic philosophy. Focus your energy on what belongs to you, your thoughts, your choices, your behavior, your integrity. Everything else belongs to life. Imagine an archer preparing to shoot an arrow. They can choose the finest bow, practice for years, aim carefully, release the arrow perfectly. But once the arrow leaves the string, the wind may change, the target may move, unexpected circumstances may interfere. The Stoics use this image to teach an important lesson. Your responsibility ends with doing your best. The outcome is never completely yours. The same principle applies to conversations. You can speak honestly, you can remain respectful, you can communicate clearly, but you cannot force understanding, you cannot force agreement, you cannot force respect. Once you accept this, a tremendous burden disappears. Many people mistake constant explanation for confidence. In reality, excessive explanation often reveals fear. Fear of being disliked, fear of being misunderstood, fear of losing approval. True confidence is quieter. It understands that not everyone will agree. Not everyone will appreciate you. Not everyone will see your intentions accurately. And that's okay. The goal isn't universal approval. The goal is living in alignment with your principles. There's another reason this response is so powerful. It prevents emotional manipulation. Some people ask questions not because they genuinely want answers, but because they want to trap you in endless debate. Every explanation becomes another opportunity to criticize. Every answer becomes another invitation to argue. The cycle never ends. By calmly saying, "I don't need to convince you," you step outside that cycle. You refuse to let someone else dictate where your emotional energy goes. This isn't arrogance, it's discernment. It's recognizing that your time, attention, and peace are valuable resources. The Stoics believed that life is far too short to waste on battles that produce no wisdom. Instead of spending hours trying to change stubborn minds, invest that energy where it creates real growth. Improve your character, strengthen your discipline, deepen your knowledge, build meaningful relationships, take care of your health. Pursue work that matters. Those quiet investments speak more convincingly than any argument ever could. And here's something remarkable. The people who constantly demand explanations are often the least interested in hearing them. Meanwhile, those who genuinely care about understanding you usually don't require endless justification. That's why the wisest response is sometimes the shortest one. I don't need to convince you. Then let your life tell the rest of the story. The third response is, you may be right. At first, this response sounds almost unbelievable. After all, why would you tell someone they may be right if they're criticizing you? Wouldn't that make you look weak? According to Stoicism, quite the opposite is true. Only someone who is secure in themselves can admit they might not know everything. The fragile ego insists on being right. The wise mind remains open to learning. Imagine a coworker says, I don't think you handled that situation very well. Most people immediately become defensive. They begin listing reasons. They explain every decision. They search for evidence that proves the other person wrong, but a Stoic pauses before reacting. Instead of treating criticism like an attack, they treat it like information. They calmly reply, you may be right. That single sentence changes the entire tone of the conversation. If the criticism contains truth, you've shown the humility to learn from it. If the criticism is unfair, you've refused to turn it into an argument. Either way, you remain in control. The Stoic philosopher Epictetus taught that if someone points out a genuine fault, you should be grateful because they've revealed an opportunity to improve. If they're mistaken, then there's nothing to fear because false opinions don't change who you are. Think about that for a moment. Truth doesn't need your anger to defend it. If you're honest, your character will eventually speak for itself. If you're wrong, discovering the truth only helps you become better. In both cases, losing your temper serves no purpose. This response also catches difficult people off guard. Many people criticize because they expect resistance. They expect a debate. When they don't receive one, the emotional momentum disappears. It's like trying to push open a door that's already open. There's nothing left to fight against. Of course, saying you may be right doesn't mean agreeing with every accusation. It simply means acknowledging that no human being is perfect. There is always room to reflect. There is always room to grow. That mindset keeps pride from becoming your greatest weakness. One of the hidden dangers of always needing to be right is that it stops you from becoming wiser. Growth begins where certainty ends. The person who believes they have nothing left to learn slowly stops improving. The Stoics never saw wisdom as a destination. They saw it as a lifelong pursuit. Every difficult conversation became another opportunity to practice patience. Every criticism became another opportunity to examine themselves. Honestly, every disagreement became another opportunity to strengthen their character. When you respond with humility instead of hostility, you're no longer trying to protect your ego. You're protecting something far more valuable, your peace of mind. And peace is always worth more than winning an argument. Response number 4. I understand your perspective. Few responses are as disarming as this. 1. I understand your perspective. Notice what this sentence does not say. It doesn't say, you're right. It doesn't say, I agree. It simply acknowledges that another person has their own point of view. That small distinction is incredibly powerful. Most people don't become angry because others disagree with them. They become angry because they feel unheard. When people feel ignored, they often raise their voices. When they feel understood, even without agreement, their emotional intensity usually begins to decrease. The Stoics understood that every person acts according to what they believe is true in that moment. Even when someone behaves poorly, they're usually acting from fear, insecurity, misunderstanding, or emotional pain. Recognizing this doesn't excuse bad behavior, but it does make it easier not to take it personally. Imagine someone says, "You never care about anyone except yourself." Your immediate reaction may be to defend yourself, but instead, you pause, you answer, "I understand why you might see it that way." Suddenly, the conversation changes. The other person no longer has to fight to be heard. Their emotional defenses begin to soften. Only then does productive communication become possible. This approach requires emotional maturity because your goal is no longer to defeat the other person. Your goal is to understand before being understood. Ironically, that's often what makes people more willing to listen to you in return. Marcus Aurelius frequently reminded himself that every person acts according to what seems good to them. People make decisions based on their experiences, beliefs, fears, and knowledge. When you remember this, compassion becomes easier. Instead of asking, "Why are they attacking me?" you begin asking, "What might they be experiencing that makes them see the world this way?" That question changes your emotional state immediately. Curiosity replaces defensiveness. Understanding replaces resentment. Calm replaces anger. Of course, understanding someone's perspective doesn't mean abandoning your own boundaries. You can listen respectfully while still disagreeing. You can remain compassionate while refusing to accept disrespect. Stoicism teaches balance, kindness without weakness, confidence without arrogance, patience without passivity. Of the greatest strengths a person can develop is the ability to remain composed in emotionally charged conversations. Anyone can remain calm when life is easy. Character reveals itself when emotions run high. The next time someone strongly disagrees with you, resist the urge to interrupt. Resist the urge to prepare your response while they're still talking. Simply listen, then calmly say, "I understand your perspective, even if the disagreement remains. You've demonstrated something rare, self-control, and self-control often earns more respect than clever arguments ever will." The Stoics believed that the quality of your character is reflected not by how you treat people who admire you, but by how you respond to those who challenge you. Anyone can be gracious when receiving praise. Wisdom is revealed when receiving criticism. Response 5. I refuse to let this disturb my peace. This response may be the most important one you'll ever learn, not because you always need to say it out loud, but because you need to believe it within yourself. I refuse to let this disturb my peace. Most of the battles people fight every day never begin with another person. They begin in the mind. Someone makes a rude comment. The conversation ends, but hours later, your mind is still arguing. You replay every sentence. You imagine better comebacks. You wonder what you should have said. The other person has already moved on, yet you're carrying the weight of the encounter everywhere you go. The Stoics believed that suffering often comes not from events themselves, but from the stories we continue telling ourselves about those events. An insult lasts only a few seconds. The memory of that insult can last for years. If we keep feeding it, imagine dropping a pebble into a calm lake. The pebble creates ripples. Eventually, the water becomes still again. Now imagine throwing another pebble into the lake every few minutes. The water never settles. Many people unknowingly do this with painful experiences. Every time they replay the moment, they throw another pebble into the lake. They keep their own emotional pain alive. The Stoic approach is different. The event happens. You acknowledge it. You learn from it if necessary. Then you allow the water to become calm again. That doesn't mean pretending nothing happened. It means refusing to relive the same emotional injury over and over again. Marcus Aurelius often reminded himself that the mind has the power to choose its interpretation. When something unpleasant happened, he would ask whether it truly deserved the power he was giving it. That's a question worth asking yourself. Will this matter a week from now? A month from now? 5 years from now? If the answer is no, why allow it to steal today's peace? This response also helps you recognize the difference between inconvenience and catastrophe. Someone interrupts you. Someone misunderstands you. Someone speaks harshly. These moments may be unpleasant, but they don't have to become permanent emotional burdens. Your peace is too valuable to exchange for every passing conflict. Think of your peace as a beautiful garden. Every Angry thought is a weed. If you ignore the weeds completely, they'll eventually take over. But if you remove them consistently, your garden continues to flourish. Protecting your peace isn't selfish, it's responsible. Because when your mind is calm, you make better decisions. You speak more wisely. You love more deeply, and you respond instead of reacting. The people who appear emotionally unshakable aren't immune to pain. They've simply learned not to build a home inside it every day. Remind yourself that your peace deserves protection, not because life will always be peaceful, but because your response always remains your choice. Response thus to 6. Thank you for your feedback. At first, this response sounds almost too polite. How could saying, thank you for your feedback, possibly silence someone who's trying to provoke you? Because it removes the one thing they were hoping to receive. Resistance. Many difficult people thrive on emotional reactions. They criticize because they expect you to defend yourself. They provoke because they expect anger. They insult because they hope to see frustration. When none of those emotions appear, their strategy begins to fail. Imagine someone says, you're not good enough for this job. Instead of arguing, you calmly respond, thank you for your feedback. Then you return to your work. That response doesn't admit defeat. It demonstrates confidence. Confident people don't feel the need to defend themselves against every opinion they hear. They understand that criticism, whether fair or unfair, doesn't define who they are. It simply reflects someone else's perspective. The Stoics believed that every experience could become a teacher, useful. Criticism helps you improve. Unfair criticism teaches patience. Both have value if you choose to learn from them. Epictetus. Encourage people to focus less on what others say and more on how they respond. After all, another person's words belong to them. Your response belongs to you. That's where your real power lives. Imagine carrying a mirror wherever you go. Every insult, every compliment, every opinion is reflected in that mirror. The mirror doesn't argue. It doesn't become angry. It simply reflects reality without losing its nature. Stoic mind works much the same way. It observes, it evaluates, then it chooses the wisest response instead of the fastest. Another benefit of thanking someone for their feedback is that it forces you to separate emotion from information. Ask yourself, is there anything useful here? If the answer is yes, you've gained valuable insight. If the answer is no, you've lost nothing. Either way, you remain calm. This mindset protects you from becoming emotionally dependent on praise as, many people spend their lives chasing compliments while fearing criticism. The Stoics warned against both extremes. If compliments control your happiness, criticism will inevitably control your sadness. True freedom comes when neither praise nor blame determines your sense of worth. Your character becomes your standard, not public opinion, not popularity, not applause. Imagine a mountain standing through every season. Storms arrive. Snow falls, strong winds blow against it. Yet the mountain remains where it is. It doesn't argue with the weather. It doesn't complain about the wind. Its strength comes from its foundation. Your character should become that foundation. When your values are deeply rooted, other people's opinions lose much of their ability to shake you. This doesn't mean becoming arrogant or indifferent. It means becoming steady, calm, grounded. The kind of person whose confidence comes from within rather than from constant approval. When someone offers criticism, accept what is useful, leave behind what is not, then continue walking your path, because your destination matters far more than every voice calling from the sidelines. Now, we've reached the final and perhaps greatest Stoic response of all. Unlike the previous responses, this one isn't merely something you say. It's something you become. And once you've truly embraced it, very few people will ever have the power to disturb your inner peace again. Response 7. Live so well that your life becomes the answer. We've arrived at the 7th and most powerful Stoic response. Unlike the others, this isn't a sentence you memorize. It isn't a clever comeback. It isn't something you say during an argument. It's something you practice every single day until it becomes part of who you are. The response is this: let your life become your answer. This is the highest form of confidence. When people underestimate you, Improve yourself. When people doubt you, remain disciplined. When people criticize you unfairly, continue acting with integrity. When people try to provoke you, refuse to abandon your principles. In other words, stop trying to win every conversation. Start trying to win your own character. The Stoics believed that virtue was the only true measure of success, not wealth, not status, not popularity, not even reputation. Because reputation belongs to other. People taught character belongs to you. Imagine two trees growing side by side. One tree spends all its energy trying to look taller than the other. The second tree simply focuses on growing stronger roots. Years later, a storm arrives. The tree that chased appearances is uprooted. The tree that strengthened its foundation remains standing. Life works the same way. If your confidence depends on what other people think, every criticism becomes a storm. But if your confidence comes from your values, honesty, discipline, patience, and self-respect, you become far more difficult to shake. This is what Marcus Aurelius practiced throughout his life. As the ruler of one of the greatest empires in history, he faced endless criticism. People questioned his decisions. They challenged his authority. Some betrayed him. Others misunderstood him completely. Yet he constantly reminded himself of one simple principle. The best revenge is not to be like your enemy. Think about the wisdom behind those words. When someone insults you and you insult them back, you've allowed them to dictate your behavior. When someone lies and you respond with dishonesty, you've sacrificed your own values. When someone loses control and you lose control as well, you've handed them influence over your character. But when you remain calm, truthful, and respectful, even in difficult moments, you keep ownership of yourself. And that's a victory no one can take away. There is another lesson here that many people overlook. The people who spend the most time judging others are often neglecting themselves. While they're busy criticizing your life, they aren't improving their own. While they're watching your every move, you're building your future. The Stoics encourage people to spend far less time worrying about what others were doing and far more time examining themselves. Every morning, ask yourself, what kind of person do I want to be today? Not, how can I impress everyone? Every evening ask, did I act with wisdom? Did I remain patient? Did I keep my integrity? Those questions create lasting confidence because they focus on what you can actually control. Imagine a sculptor working on a block of marble. Each day, they remove only a small piece. From the outside, the progress seems slow, but week after week, month after month, a masterpiece begins to emerge. Character is built the same way. Every time you choose patience instead of anger, you strengthen it. Every time you choose honesty over convenience, you strengthen it. Every time you choose discipline instead of excuses, you strengthen it. No single decision changes your life overnight, but thousands of small decisions quietly shape the person you become. That's why Stoicism places such a strong emphasis on daily practice. Wisdom isn't something you read once. It's something you live repeatedly. There will still be difficult people. There will still be unfair criticism. There will still be moments when someone tries to provoke you. The difference is that you'll no longer feel obligated to react. You'll recognize those moments as opportunities to practice patience, to practice restraint, to practice self-mastery. And with each challenge, your confidence will become less dependent on circumstances and more rooted in your own character. One day, you'll notice something remarkable. The comments that once ruined your day barely capture your attention. The insults that once kept you awake at night no longer linger in your mind. The people who once controlled your emotions lose their influence completely, not because they've changed, because you have. That is the quiet power of Stoicism. It doesn't promise a world without difficult people. It prepares you to remain steady in a world that will always contain them. Powerful conclusion and outros. We come to the end of this journey. Take a moment to reflect on what we've discovered together. None of these 7 responses were designed to humiliate anyone. None relied on clever insults or sharp comebacks. Instead, every response pointed toward one timeless principle, the greatest. Victory is mastering yourself. Let's remember them one more time. Response 1. You're entitled to your opinion because another person's opinion is not your identity. Response 2. I don't need to convince you because your actions will always speak louder than endless explanations. Response. 3. You may be right, because humility is a strength, not a weakness. Response. 4. I understand your perspective, because understanding others often ends conflicts before they begin. Response. 5. I refuse to let this disturb my peace, because your inner calm is too valuable to surrender over temporary situations. Response. 6. Thank you for your feedback, because every experience can teach you something, even criticism. And finally, response. 7. Let your life become your answer, because nothing silences doubt more effectively than consistent character. Imagine applying these principles for the next month. Imagine how different your conversations would become. How much emotional energy would you save? How many unnecessary arguments would simply disappear? How much more confident would you feel if you no longer needed everyone's approval? The truth is, the people who seem impossible to offend aren't people who never face criticism. They're people who have stopped giving criticism control over their lives. That's the freedom Stoicism offers. Not freedom from challenges, freedom from becoming a prisoner of your reactions. Remember, every person you meet is fighting battles you may never see. Some hide their pain behind anger. Others hide their insecurity behind arrogance. Some seek attention through conflict because they don't know how else to feel important. Recognizing this doesn't mean accepting disrespect. It means refusing to let another person's inner turmoil become your own. Real confidence doesn't announce itself. It doesn't demand attention. It doesn't chase approval. It walks quietly. It speaks thoughtfully. It listens carefully. And when necessary, it walks away without looking back. As the Stoics understood long ago, your greatest responsibility isn't controlling other people's behavior. It's governing your own mind. That is where peace begins. That is where strength grows. And that is where true freedom lives. So the next time someone tries to provoke you, pause, take a breath. Remember these 7 responses. Choose the one that protects your peace instead of your ego, because years from now, people won't remember every argument you won, but you will remember the person you became. If today's message gave you a new perspective, take one principle from this video and begin practicing it today. Real transformation doesn't happen by learning more. It happens by living differently. If you found value in this video, don't forget to leave a like and share it with someone who could use a little more peace and a little less conflict in their life. And if you're passionate about Stoicism, self-mastery, emotional resilience, and timeless wisdom that can improve your everyday life, be sure to subscribe and turn on notifications. We're building a community of people who choose discipline over impulse, wisdom over ego, and inner peace over unnecessary conflict. Thank you for watching. Until next time, remember this: no one can truly silence a person who has mastered themselves, and no one can defeat a mind that refuses to surrender its peace. Stay wise, stay calm, and keep walking your path with quiet confidence.